guys, today we are going to be reading part 2 of chapter 5 entitled Diagon Alley. And remember, we left off with part 1 right as Hagrid and Harry walked into Diagon Alley. So here we go. "Welcome," said Hagrid, "to Diagon Alley." Harry grinned in amazement. They stepped through the archway. Harry looked quickly over his shoulder and saw the archway shrink instantly back into solid wall. The sun shone brightly on a stack of cauldrons outside the nearest shop. Cauldrons, all sizes, copper, brass, pewter, silver, self-stirring, collapsible, said a sign hanging over them. "Yeah, you'll be needing one," said Hagrid. "But we gotta get your money first." Harry wished he had about 8 more eyes. He turned his head in every direction as they walked up the street, trying to look at everything at once. The shops, the things outside of them, the people doing their shopping. A plump woman outside an apothecary was shaking her head as they passed, saying, "Dragon liver, 16 sickles an ounce. They're mad." A low, soft hooting came from a dark shop with a sign saying Aelop's Owl Emporium. Tawny, Screech, Barn, Brown, and Snowy. Several boys of about Harry's age had their noses pressed against the window with broomsticks in it. "Look," Harry heard one of them say, "the Nimbus 2000, fastest ever." There were shops selling robes, shops selling telescopes, and strange silver instruments Harry had never seen before. Windows stacked with barrels of bat spleens, eel's eyes, tottering piles of spellbooks, quills, and rolls of parchment, potion bottles, globes of the moon. "Gringotts," said Hagrid. They had reached a snowy white building that towered over the other little shops. Standing beside its varnished bronze doors, wearing a uniform of scarlet and gold, was... "Yep, that's a goblin," said Hagrid quietly as they walked up the white stone steps towards him. The goblin was about a head shorter than Harry. He had a swarthy, clever face and pointed beard, and Harry noticed very long fingers and feet. He bowed as they walked inside. Now they were facing a second pair of doors, silver this time, with words engraved upon them. "Enter, stranger, but take heed of what awaits the sin of greed. For those who take but do not earn must pay most dearly in their turn. So if you seek beneath our floors a treasure that was never yours, thief, you have been warned, beware of finding more than treasure there." "Like I said, you'd be mad to try and rob it," said Hagrid. A pair of goblins bowed at them through the silver doors, and they were in a vast marble hall. About 100 more goblins were sitting on high stools behind a long counter, scribbling in large ledgers, weighing coins in brass scales, examining precious stones through eyeglasses. There were too many doors to count leading off the hall, and yet more goblins were showing people in and out of these. Hagrid and Harry made for the counter. "Morning," said Hagrid to the free goblin. "We've come to take some money out of Mr. Potter's safe." "You have a key, sir?" Got it somewhere," said Hagrid, and he started emptying his pockets onto the counter, scattering a handful of moldy dog biscuits over the goblin's book of numbers. The goblin wrinkled his nose. Hagrid watched the goblin on their right, Harry watched the goblin on their right, weighing a pile of rubies as big as glowing coals. "That seems, got it," said Hagrid at last, holding up a tiny golden key. The goblin looked at it closely. "Seems to be in order. And I've also got a letter from Professor Dumbledore," said Hagrid importantly, throwing out his chest. "It's about, you know what, in Vault 713. The goblin read the letter carefully. "Very well," he said, handing it back to Hagrid. "We will have someone take you to both vaults. Griphook!" Griphook was yet another goblin. Once Hagrid had crammed all the dog biscuits back in his pockets, he and Harry followed Griphook towards one of the doors leading off the hall. "What's the you-know-what in Vault 713? Harry asked. Can't tell you that, said Hagrid mysteriously. Very secret. Hogwarts business. Dumbledore trusted me. More'n my job's worth to tell you that. Griphook held the door open for them. Harry, who had expected more marble, was surprised. They were in a narrow stone passageway, lit with flaming torches. It sloped steeply downward, and there were little railway tracks on the floor. Griphook whistled, and a small cart came hurtling up the tracks towards them. They climbed in, Hagrid with some difficulty, and were off. At first, they just hurtled through a maze of twisting passages. Harry tried to remember left, right, left, middle fork, right, left, but it was impossible. The rattling cart seemed to know its own way, because Griphook wasn't steering. Harry's eyes stung as the cold air rushed past them, but he kept them wide open. Once he thought he saw a burst of fire at the end of the passage, and twisted around to see if it was a dragon. But too late, they plunged even deeper, passing an underground lake where huge stalactites and stalagmites grew from the ceiling and floor. I never know, Harry called to Hagrid over the noise of the cart. What's the difference between a stalagmite and a stalactite? Stalagmite's got an M in it, said Hagrid. And don't ask me questions just now. I'm gonna be sick. He did look very green. And when the cart stopped at last beside a small door in the passage wall, Hagrid got out and had to lean against the wall to stop his knees from trembling. Griphook unlocked the door. A lot of green smoke came billowing out, and as it cleared, Harry gasped. Inside were mounds of gold coins, columns of silver, heaps of little bronze newts. All yours, smiled Hagrid. All Harry's? It was incredible. The Dursleys couldn't have known about this, or they'd have had it from him faster than blinking. How often had they complained how much Harry cost them to keep? And all the time, there had been a small fortune belonging to him, buried deep under London. Hagrid helped Harry pile some of it into his bag. The gold ones are galleons, he explained. 17 silver sickles to a galleon, and 29 newts to a sickle. It's easy enough. Right. That should be enough for a couple of terms. We'll keep the rest safe for you. He turned to Griphook. Vault 713 now, please. And can we go more slowly? Only one speed, said Griphook. They were going even deeper now, gathering speed, and the air became colder and colder as they hurtled round tight corners. They were rattling over an underground ravine. Harry leaned over the side to try to see what was down in the dark bottom, but Hagrid groaned and pulled him back by the scruff of his neck. Vault 713 had no keyhole. Stand back, said Griphook importantly. He stroked the door gently with one of his long fingers, and it simply melted away. If anybody but Gringotts goblins tried that, they'd be sucked through the door and trapped in there, said Griphook. How often do you check to see if anyone's inside? Harry asked. About once every 10 years, said Griphook with a rather nasty grin. Something really extraordinary had to be inside this top secret security vault. Harry was sure, and he leaned forward eagerly, expecting to see fabulous jewels at the very least. But first, he thought it was empty. Then he saw a grubby little package wrapped in brown paper lying on the floor. Hagrid picked it up and tucked it deep inside his coat. Harry longed to know what it was, but he knew better than to ask. Come on, back to that infernal cart, and don't talk to me on the way back. It's best if I keep my mouth shut, said Hagrid. One wild cart ride later, they stood blinking in the sunlight outside of Gringotts. Harry didn't know where to run first, now that he had a bag full of money. He didn't know how many galleons there were to a pound. He didn't have to know how many galleons there were to a pound to know he was holding more money than he'd had in his whole life. More money than even Dudley ever had. Might as well get your uniform, said Hagrid, nodding toward Madame Malkin's robes for all occasions. Listen, Harry, would you mind if I stopped off for a pick-me-up at the Leaky Cauldron? I hate them Gringotts carts. He did still look a bit sick, so Harry entered Madame Malkin's shop alone, feeling nervous. Madame Malkin was a squat, smiling witch dressed in all mauve. Hogwarts, dear, she said, when Harry started to speak. Got the lot here. Another young man's being fitted up just now, in fact. In the back of the shop, a boy with a pale pointed face was standing on a footstool, while a second witch pinned up his long black robes. Madame Malkin stood Harry on a stool next to him, slipped a long black robe over his head, and began to pin it in the right length. Hello, said the boy. Hogwarts too? Yes, said Harry. My father's next door buying my books, and Mother's up the street looking at wands, said the boy. He had a bored, drawling voice. Then I'm going to drag them off to look at the racing brooms. I don't see why first years can't have their own. I think I'll bully Father into getting me one, and I'll smuggle it in somehow. Harry was strongly reminded of Dudley. Have you got your own broom? The boy went on. No, said Harry. Play Quidditch at all? No, said Harry again, wondering what on earth Quidditch was. I do. Father says it's a crime if I'm not picked to play for my house, and I must say I agree. Know what house you'll be in yet? No, said Harry, feeling more stupid by the minute. Well, no one knows until they get there, do they? But I know I'll be in Slytherin. All our family have been. Imagine being in Hufflepuff. I think I'd leave, wouldn't you? Said Harry, wishing he could say something a bit more interesting. I say, look at that man, said the boy suddenly, nodding toward the front window. Hagrid was standing there grinning at Harry and pointing to 2 large ice creams to show he couldn't come in. That's Hagrid, said Harry, pleased to know something the boy didn't. He works at Hogwarts. Oh, said the boy, I've heard of him. He's sort of a servant, isn't he? Oh, he's the gamekeeper, said Harry. He was liking the boy less and less. Every second. Yes, exactly. I heard he's sort of savage. Lives in a hut in the school grounds, and every now and then he gets drunk and tries to do magic. At the end, and ends up setting fire to his bed. I think he's brilliant, said Harry coldly. Do you? Said the boy with a slight sneer. Why's he with you? Where are your parents? They're dead, said Harry shortly. He didn't feel much like going into the matter with this boy. Oh, sorry. Said the other, not sounding sorry at all. But they were our kind, weren't they? They were a witch and wizard, if that's what you mean. I really don't think they should let the other sort in, do you? They're just not the same. They've never been brought up to know our ways. Some of them have never even heard of Hogwarts until they get the letter. Imagine. I think they should keep it to the old wizarding families. What's your surname, anyway? Before Harry could answer, Madame Malkin said, That's you done, my dear. And Harry, not sorry for an excuse to stop talking to the boy, hopped down from his footstool. Well, I'll see you at Hogwarts, I suppose, said the drawling boy. Harry was rather quiet as he ate his ice cream Hagrid had bought him, chocolate and raspberry with chopped nuts. What's up? Said Hagrid. Nothing. Harry lied. They stopped to buy parchment and quills. Harry cheered up a bit when he found a bottle of ink that changed colors as you wrote. But when they had left the shop, he said, Hagrid, what's Quidditch? Blimey, Harry, I keep forgetting how little you know, not knowing about Quidditch. Don't make me feel worse, said Harry. He told Hagrid about the pale boy at Madame Malkin's. And he said people from the Muggle families shouldn't even be allowed in. You're not from a Muggle family. If he'd known who you were, he's grown up knowing your name if his parents are wizarding folk. You saw what everyone in the Leaky Cauldron was like when they saw you. Anyway, what does he know about it? Some of the best I ever saw were the only ones with magic in them for a long line of Muggles. Look at your mom. Look what she had for a sister. Okay, so what is Quidditch? It's our sport, wizard sport. It's like soccer in the Muggle world. Everyone follows Quidditch. Played up in the air on broomsticks, and there's 4 balls. Sort of hard to explain. And what are Slytherin and Hufflepuff? Schoolhouses, there's 4. Everyone says Hufflepuff are a lot of duffers, but I bet I'm in Hufflepuff, said Harry gloomily. Better Hufflepuff than Slytherin, said Hagrid darkly. There's not a single witch or wizard who went bad that wasn't in Slytherin. You know who was one. You know who went to Hogwarts? Years and years ago. They bought Harry's school books in a shop called Flourish and Blots, where the shelves were stacked to the ceiling with books as large as paving stones, bound in leather. Books the size of postage stamps covered in silk. Books full of peculiar symbols, and a few books with nothing in them at all. Even Dudley, who never read anything, would have been wild to get his hands on some of these. Hagrid almost had to drag Harry away from curses and counter curses, bewitch your friends and befuddle your enemies with the latest revenges, hair loss, jelly legs, tongue tying, and much, much more, by Professor Vindictus Viridian. I was trying to find out how to curse Dudley. I'm not saying that's not a good idea, but you're not to use magic in the Muggle world except in very special circumstances, said Hagrid. And anyway, you couldn't work any of them curses yet. You'll need more study before you get to that level. Hagrid wouldn't let Harry buy a solid gold cauldron either. It says pewter on the list. But they got a nice set of scales for weighing potion ingredients and a collapsible brass telescope. Then they visited the apothecary, which was fascinating enough to make up for its horrible smell. A mixture of bad eggs and rotten cabbages. Barrels of slimy stuff stood on the floor. Jars of herbs, dried roots, and bright powders lined the walls. Bundles of feathers, strings, and fangs, and snarled claws hung from the ceiling. While Hagrid asked the man behind the counter for a supply of some basic potion ingredients for Harry himself examined a silver unicorn horn at 21 galleons each, and a minuscule glittery black beetle eyes, 5 newts a scoop. Outside the apothecary, Hagrid checked Harry's list again. Just your wand left. Oh yeah, and I still haven't gotten you a birthday present. Harry felt himself go red. You don't have to. I know I don't have to. Tell you what, I'll get you your animal. Not a toad. Toads went out of fashion years ago. You'd be laughed at. And I don't like cats. They make me sneeze. I'll get you an owl. All the kids want owls. They're dead useful. Carry your mail and everything. 20 minutes later, they left Ilop Owl Emporium, which had been dark and full of rustling and flickering, jewel-bright eyes. Harry now carried a large cage that held a beautiful snowy owl, fast asleep with her head under her wing. He couldn't stop stammering his thanks, sounding just like Professor Quirrell. "Don't mention it," said Hagrid gruffly. "Don't expect you've had a lot of presents from them Dursleys. Just Ollivanders left now. Only place for wands. Ollivanders, and you gotta have the best wand." Magic wand. That's what Harry had really been looking forward to. The last shop was narrow and shabby. Peeling gold letters over the door read Ollivanders, maker of fine wands since 382 BC. A single wand lay on a faded purple cushion on a dusty window. A tinkling bell rang somewhere in the depths of the shop as they stepped inside. It was a tiny place, empty except for a single spindly chair that Hagrid sat on to wait. Harry felt strangely as though he had entered this very strict library. He swallowed a lot of new questions that had just occurred to him and looked instead at the thousands of narrow boxes piled neatly right up to the ceiling. For some reason, the back of his neck prickled. The very dust and silence in here seemed to tingle with some secret magic. "Good afternoon," said a soft voice. Harry jumped. Hagrid must have jumped too, because there was a loud crunching noise, and he got quickly off the spindly chair. The old man was standing before them, his wide, pale eyes shining like moons through the gloom of the shop. "Hello?" said Harry awkwardly. "Ah, yes," said the old man. Yes, I thought I'd be seeing you soon, Harry Potter." It wasn't a question. "You have your mother's eyes. It seems like only yesterday. She was in here herself, buying her first wand. 10¼ inch long, swishy, made of willow. Nice wand for charm work." Mr. Ollivander moved closer to Harry. Harry wished he would blink. Those silvery eyes were a bit creepy. "Your father, on the other hand, favored the mahogany wand, 11 inches, pliable, a little more power, and excellent for transfiguration." "Well, I say your father favored it. It's really the wand that chooses the wizard, of course." Mr. Ollivander had come so close that he and Harry were almost nose to nose. Harry could see himself reflected in those misty eyes. And that's where Mr. Ollivander touched the lightning scar on Harry's forehead with a long white finger. "I'm sorry to say, I sold the wand that did that to you," he said softly. 13½ inches. You. Powerful wand. Very powerful. And in the wrong hands? Well, if I'd known what that wand was going out into the world to do. He shook his head and then, to Harry's relief, spotted Hagrid. Rubius Hagrid! How nice to see you again. Oak, 16 inches. Rather bendy, wasn't it?" "It was, sir. Yes," said Hagrid. "Good wand, that one. But I suppose they snapped it in half when you got expelled," said Mr. Ollivander in a suddenly stern. Yes, they did. Yes," said Hagrid, shuffling his feet. "You've still got the pieces, though," he added brightly. "But you don't use them," said Mr. Ollivander sharply. "Oh, no, sir," said Hagrid quickly. Harry noticed he gripped his pink umbrella very tightly as he spoke. Said Ollivander, giving Harry a piercing look. "Well now, Mr. Potter, let me see." He pulled a long tape measure with silver markings out of his pocket. "Which is your wand arm?" I'm right-handed," said Harry. Hold out your arm. That's it. He measured Harry from shoulder to finger, then wrist to elbow, shoulder to floor, knee to armpit, and round his head. As he measured, he said, every Ollivander's wand has a core of a powerful magical substance, Mr. Potter. We use unicorn hairs, phoenix tail feathers, and a heartstring of dragons. No two Ollivander's wands are the same. Just as no two unicorns, dragons, or phoenixes are quite the same. And of course, you will never get such a good results with another wizard's wand. Harry suddenly realized that the tape measure, which was measuring between his nostrils, was doing this on its own, which Mr. Ollivander was flitting around the shelves, taking out boxes. That will do, he said, and the tape measure crumbled up into a heap on the floor. Right then, Mr. Potter, try this one. Beechwood with dragon heartstring, 9 inches, nice and flexible. Just take it and give it a wave. Harry took the wand and, feeling foolish, waved it about a bit. But Mr. Ollivander snatched it out of his hand almost at once. Maple and phoenix feather, 7 inches. Quite whippy. Try. Harry tried, but he had hardly raised the wand when it, too, was snatched back by Mr. Ollivander. No. Here, ebony and unicorn hair, 8.5 inches, springy. Go, go, go. Go on and try. Try it out. Harry tried and tried. He had no idea what Mr. Ollivander was waiting for. The pile of tried wands was mounting higher and higher on the spindly chair. But the more wands Mr. Ollivander pulled from the shelves, the happier he seemed to become. Tricky customer, eh? Not to worry. We'll find the perfect match here somewhere. I wonder. Now? Yeah, I wonder. Unusual combination. Holly and a phoenix feather. 11 inches. Nice and supple. Harry took the wand. He felt a sudden warmth in his fingers. He raised the wand above his head, brought it swishing down through the dusty air, and a stream of red and gold sparks shot from the end like a firework, throwing dancing spots of light onto the walls. Hagrid whooped and clapped, and Mr. Ollivander cried, "Oh, bravo! Yes, indeed! Oh, very good! Well, how curious! How very curious!" He put Harry's wand back into its box and wrapped it into brown paper, still muttering, Curious. Sorry, said Harry, but what's curious? Mr. Ollivander fixed Harry with his pale stare. I remember every wand I've ever sold, Mr. Potter. Every single wand. It so happens that the phoenix, whose tail feather is in your wand, gave another feather. Just one other. And it's very curious indeed that you should be destined for this wand when its brother gave you that scar. Harry swallowed. Yes, 13.5 inches, you. Curious indeed how these things happened. The wand chooses the wizard, remember. I think we must expect great things from you, Mr. Potter. After all, he who must not be named did great things. Terrible, yes, but great. Harry shivered. He wasn't sure he liked Mr. Ollivander too much. He paid 7 gold galleons for his wand, and Mr. Ollivander bowed them from the shop. The late afternoon sun hung low on the sky as Harry and Hagrid made their way back down Diagon Alley, back through the wall, back through the leaky cauldron, now empty. Harry didn't speak at all as they walked down the road. He didn't even notice how much people were gawking at them on the underground. Laden as they were with all their funny-shaped packages, with the snowy owl asleep in its cage on Harry's lap, up another escalator, into Paddington Station. Harry only realized where they were when Hagrid tapped on his shoulder. "Got time for a bite to eat before your train leaves," he said. He bought Harry a hamburger and they sat down on plastic seats to eat them. Harry kept looking around. Everything looks so strange somehow. "You all right, Harry?" "Very quiet," said Hagrid. Harry wasn't sure he could explain. He just had the best birthday of his life, and yet he chewed his hamburger, trying to find the words. "Everyone thinks I'm special," he said at last. "All those people in the leaky cauldron, Professor Quirrell, Mr. Ollivander, but I don't know anything about magic at all. How can they expect great things? I'm famous and I can't even remember what I'm famous for. I don't know what happened when the night my parents died." Hagrid leaned across the table. Behind the wild beard and the eyebrows, he wore a very kind smile. "Don't you worry, Harry. You'll learn fast enough. Everyone starts at the beginning at Hogwarts. You'll be just fine. You'll be yourself. I know it's hard. You've been singled out, and that's always hard. But you have a great time at Hogwarts. I did. Still do, as a matter of fact." Hagrid helped Harry onto the train that would take him back to the Dursleys, then handed him an envelope. "Your ticket for Hogwarts," he said. "1st of September, King's Cross. It's on your ticket. Any problems with the Dursleys, send me a letter with your owl. She'll know where to find me. See you soon, Harry." The train pulled out of the station. Harry wanted to watch Hagrid until he was out of sight. He rose in his seat, pressed his nose against the window, but he blinked and Hagrid was gone. Hope you guys enjoyed.